The year is 1802. Fed up with the corruption in government and rejected by society, one man decides to abandon everything he knows and retreats to the top of Big Bald Mountain, deep in the Appalachians. Here, he built his own country, complete with his own constitution and set of laws, and for the next 3 decades, he ruled his domain with an iron fist against any man who dared to threaten his sovereignty. This is a true story of the Hermit of Big Bald Mountain. Our story begins in the late 1780s. A German family with the last name Greer lands on the coast of South Carolina to begin to make a new life in America. Seeing that all the coastal land was claimed, the family kept pushing inward and westward until they reached the foothills below the Appalachian Mountains in the northwest corner of North Carolina. It was here in Buncombe County, just off the French Broad River on Reams Creek, that the family planted their roots and began to carve out their own little piece of the American dream. The family's eldest son was named David, a husky fella who was over 6 feet tall by the time he was 18 years old. Now, David was intelligent, and he loved to read the literary classics of the time, as well as books on philosophy and law. By all accounts, this young man seemed destined to make his mark during his lifetime. Now, it was about this time that David began to feel the urge to set out on his own. So he bid farewell to his family and began roaming the settlements and villages that dotted the mountain valleys. Before long, David gained employment to a wealthy man named Colonel Vance, who was a soldier, a school teacher, surveyor, and farmer who had moved to North Carolina during the Revolutionary War. And he had even fought in the Battle of Kings Mountain. Mr. Vance had helped survey the North Carolina-Tennessee state line that ran atop the tallest peaks in the Great Smoky Mountains. And Colonel Vance took in David and made him a laborer on his farm, and had even given him a place to sleep in the hayloft of his family barn. Each night, Mr. Vance allowed David to eat supper with the family, where he would tell of his battles during the war and stories from exploring the untamed wilderness and encounters of wild beasts in the Smoky Mountains. For his part, David did his best to listen to the stories. Yet, truth be told, he was distracted by the beauty of the Colonel's teenage daughter, Mary, who was seated across the table from him. And Mary, she was an absolute beauty, full of grace, charm, and elegance. David had never laid eyes on anyone like her in his life, and he was quickly obsessed with her. He spent his days working in the fields and his nights writing poetry and love letters by the light of the moon. Weeks turned into months. He wrote her every day, and he told her how much he loved her and how he would do anything for her. And finally, after several months, David couldn't wait any longer, and he decided he would ask Mary for her hand in marriage. However, Mary sat stone-faced as she listened to David's proposal on bended knee. And when he was finished, he looked into her eyes and eagerly awaited for her response. Yet it was clear Mary didn't feel the same, and she also made it clear that she would never marry a man like David, a common laborer. "But Mary," David pleaded, "you know how I feel. I've expressed my love for you in letters, day after day for months." And just then, Mary spoke. "You're a fool. I never read a single word from those letters, and I tossed them all into the fireplace each and every night." Then, with the coldest look possible in her eyes, Mary stood to leave, but paused for a moment and looked back at David with a smirk on her face. "You don't deserve a woman like me. I'm much too high maintenance for a poor man like you." And with that, she walked out of the room and David's life.
Nights turn to days, and colors turn to gray without you. Memories start to fade, and everything is pale without you. And I can feel the love my mind runs free above whenever you're with me.
Now, it's well known that the power and the allure of a beautiful woman can make an otherwise sensible man lose his mind. In fact, it's happened countless times in history. And you see, David was no different. He was completely crushed by Mary's rejection, and something inside of him snapped. Her words made him feel worthless, and he was beyond redemption. That night, he looked out the window of his hayloft. The moon was full, and the air was calm and quiet. Surely, somewhere out there, among those lonesome, towering mountain ridges, he must belong. His eyes scanned over the dark masses in the distance. They were void of any government, and lawlessness was just as natural as the clear waters that flowed throughout them. And just like that, by daybreak, David Grier walked away from the rules and the norms of so-called civilization and was bound for a life of isolation in a place that no white man had ever lived before, in the wildest, most untamed region of the mighty Appalachians, at the very top of Big Bald Mountain. Hey guys, JD here. Click the link below to check out my new book. It's full of stories just like the one you're listening to right now. Now, back to the story. David Grier took all the money he had in this world, $6.25, and he bought 50 acres for 12.5 cents each on Big Bald Mountain. And folks down in the valley, well, they thought he was nuts. No one in their right mind would live up there. But David, he was a broken man. His entire personality changed. Gone was the poetic writer and literary scholar that he once was. Now he was a man mad at the world, full of scorn and hatefulness. Now the Great Bald Mountain, as with all Appalachian mountains that have the name Bald, it had no trees at the top. Instead, it was a vast, level grassland at its summit. Now, long ago, Native Americans claimed that when God was forming the Appalachians, a giant buzzard flew over the flat earth, and each time his wings touched the earth, a valley was formed, and where his wings turned up, a mountain was formed. And each time the bird's feathers grazed a mountaintop, a bald summit was formed, where no trees would ever grow. Instead, they were fertile and flat as a tabletop peaks. Here at the top of Big Bald, just inside the Tennessee state line, David found a rock cave next to the head of Higgins Creek, and he made it his home. Now David was a well-educated man for the times, and he declared himself sole sovereign owner of Big Bald Mountain. He wrote his own articles of government, and even a series of laws and punishment prescribed for anyone who accidentally hiked up his mountain and broke one of those laws. And ignorance of his laws, well, that was no excuse, and he would render harsh penalties, such as a slug from his hog rifle, or a good old-fashioned fist beating to any and all violators. And farmers down in flatland country, they would turn their cattle loose and let them graze on Big Bald. So David dug a moat around the entire summit, which served to keep his personal cattle in and others out. In his mountain kingdom, the young hermit raised rye, potatoes, corn, and tobacco. Iron ore was plentiful on the mountain, so he made all his own tools. Now Grier built a small mill on Higgins Creek to grind all his corn, and each spring the grizzled man would trek down the mountain to flatland country, where he would obtain his yearly supplies of bullets, seeds, and such. Yet he never paid or bartered for the goods. He simply took what he wanted, and any store owner who made the mistake of asking for payment would soon find themselves on the wrong end of a savage beating for their efforts. All of the folks down in Flat Pond would lock their doors when the Hermit of Big Bald Mountain, David Greer, made his yearly pilgrimage, and mothers would even threaten unruly children that they'd leave them outside for David if their behaviors didn't improve. After a few years, a taxman from the North Carolina side of the mountain wandered onto Greer's property and informed the mountain renegade that he was delinquent on a 75-cent poll tax. And upon hearing this, David informed the revenuer that he would personally take care of the obligation on the next court date. And, true to his word, the following month, Greer appeared at the Morganton, North Carolina courtroom. And when his case was called, David approached the bar with a loaded gun and ordered the judge, sheriff, and jury outside. Then he proceeded to bust all the windows out of the courtroom and carved his initials in the judge's desk with his pocket knife. Just like that, those taxes were dismissed. So it was David Greer lived alone at the top of Big Bald for over 30 years, hunting and farming by day, and writing theses on human religion and government by night. But by the late 1830s, more and more folks began to climb up the hillsides, looking for places to homestead. And although David didn't like it one bit, a fella named Holland Higgins bought the property adjoining David's. Now, the newcomer tried to live peacefully with his neighbor, but David, he continued enforcing his constitution and the laws he had written that governed the mountain. And after an argument over Mr. Higgins shooting a deer on Mr. Greer's property, David shot Holland Higgins dead. Now, accounts differ on whether he was ever tried for the crime. Some say he was acquitted because he was insane, and others say he was never tried because there weren't any witnesses. But either way, time was running out on Greer's law and rule over the mountain, because folks were flat out afeared of his hot and volatile temper, and began to arm themselves at all times, just in case they ran across him. And time finally ran out for the Hermit of the Mountain on one spring day in 1834. David had traveled down to the valley and took some farming tools to be repaired at the blacksmith shop of George Tompkins, and he dropped them off. Upon leaving, he told the blacksmith exactly what day and hour he would return to pick them up. Yet, when David returned, the blacksmith, he hadn't even started work on the repairs. The wild and unpredictable mountain man was furious, and he stormed out of the door and made his way back to his mule to grab his rifle. An onlooker told the blacksmith right then and there that he had just signed his own death warrant for not repairing those tools. So the two men locked the door and cowered inside for nearly 4 hours. Wanting to see if Greer was still outside, the blacksmith put his hat on the end of his rifle and stuck it where it was visible in a window. And within seconds, a ball of hot lead busted through the glass and shot the hat across the room. David, he was sure he had killed the no-good-for-nothing blacksmith, so he mounted his mule and set out to leave town. And seeing this, the blacksmith slowly poked his rifle out the window and shot David Greer in the back, killing him dead. Finally, after 32 years of making the entire world pay the price for a woman who scorned him, the Hermit of Big Bald Mountain ruled no more. The Appalachian Storyteller would like to thank our members whose generous contributions make true stories like this one possible. If you'd like to help support the cost of research and video production, click the join button below. Thank you for your support.